Yo, what's up, children of Earth? Welcome to another episode of Five Deep. Four beautiful, handsome young men in the room and no females. What a success. Good evening, gents.
Good evening, sir.
How are we?
I'm feeling beautiful.
You feeling beautiful? You're looking very beautiful, Rodney. You're looking very beautiful.
Well, all right. Thank you.
Have you had a shave?
Actually, I did. I shaved my head and I trimmed the
Lee?
mustache a little bit.
Have you had a shave?
No, not yet. My balls, yeah, but not my head.
Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us on...
Wait a minute.
Oh, sorry.
Have any of you guys noticed it's like a lot of those like ball shaving commercials, and I'm getting all kinds of advertisements and stuff. I've seen them on TV too. Nobody's been seeing that? It's like a campaign.
Yeah, the Lawnmower 3000.
Yeah, the bushwhackers and stuff like that. I actually had a company once ask me if I would be prepared to have them as a sponsor for my podcast. But I read the reviews and it was fucking shocking. And I just thought, I ain't putting my balls to that.
What kind of reviews was it?
Loads of people saying that they're always getting the balls nicked on it and it was making a right mess down below. And I just thought, imagine that. Hello, welcome to the Mark Jeffries Show. Five stitches I had last night on my balls down below. There's this stupid ball whacker that I've got. Joey Diaz don't have that problem, does he?
He's funny.
Joey Diaz, what a legend. Anyway, before we rudely interrupted, welcome to this week's episode of Five Deep. We are live on YouTube. We're going to be talking this week about podcasting again. Last week we talked about podcasts, the podcast we listened to. We asked, what is a podcast? We talked about our very first podcast that we listened to. We briefly talked about our own podcasts and the transformation of our podcasts over the years. And this week we're going to be delving deep into one another's podcasts and looking at the pros and cons of the podcast that we got going and all of that shizzle. So feel free to, drop something in the comment, ask us a question, interact with us, and we will do our very, very best to get back to you. Howard, start off with you. Right. What is your gratitude of the week? Seeing Harmony's not here, I thought I'll pretend to be Harmony. Let's get some gratitude going on, right? What's your gratitude of the day been? Not the week, the day.
The day would be what we talked about in their Vox group, that my son's getting better. So he was sick, has a bout of pneumonia, and he seems to be getting better. So I'm very grateful for that, because being in the emergency room, you see people a lot worse off. So
sweet. Get well soon, Sammy. It's not very nice to see any children poorly. So, he's been having a bit of a rough time with his colds and stuff like that. So get better soon, mate. What about you, Rodney? What's your gratitude of the day?
I don't know. I didn't have time to think about this. So
you don't need to think. You don't need to think.
Surprise question. I don't know.
If Harmony was here now, she would have kicked off big time with that. I'll tell you.
She can't answer for me. She would have to wait till I'm done talking.
There would have definitely been a...
What do you mean you got no gratitude, motherfucker? What do you mean?
I have gratitude for the trees and the air that I breathe. And no, today was actually, I slept like a couple of hours and I got up and picked up my daughter and I just came back here to, do this. So I'm happy. My gratitude is that I'm amongst friends and colleagues.
So today was a good day.
Yeah, I think.
Want to say that in a cube style?
I'm becoming a little weird these days where I'm like, hey man, I woke up on this side of the dirt, so it's a good day. I'm becoming a little too weird now.
What about
you? Is that
you?
Too weird?
What about you there, Lee? It is too weird, but we'll move on. What about you, Lee?
My gratitude for today is having lungs in my breath in my lungs.
Yeah.
I woke up, I drew breath, and I was like, oh, amazing. I'm gifted one more day.
Mine, funny enough, and I talked about this morning, is podcasts. I am so grateful for podcasts because, I started off the morning dark. It was dark and dismal, and feeling a little bit down and depressed, and like I have been for a while. And by about lunchtime, I'd listen to a podcast, and it made me feel so much better. So over the years, I've said about how podcasting saved my life, and I just think sometimes you got to listen to a few podcasts to make you feel good again.
Copy that.
So this week, Howard wanted us to analyze each other's podcast, didn't you, Howard?
Yes, sir.
So we'll start off with you first of all. I think that's the best thing to do. Tell us a little bit about, and tell the people at home a little bit about your podcast.
Well, as of now, what I'm doing is I am posting the vlogs that I put out on my YouTube channel. I put that up on Anchor. And so on Spotify, you can watch the vlog, and then on other platforms, you can listen to it. And it's basically going over my thoughts on certain concepts, running, because I do like to run, like my tips on running, growing the business, the supplement business, SMB Nutrition, Howard's Blend plant-based protein powder, 20 grams of plant-based protein per serving, per scoop. I had to throw that in there. Yeah, just talking about things that I've learned through the business. The podcast is really in flux, I'll say right now. Is just thinking about like what direction I want to go. Do I want to stick on this? I've done a lot of episodes, and we've all talked about this before, where I go into supplement science because I do enjoy learning about supplements, how they work. So that's kind of like what go over now. So,
and what platform did you say you use?
I upload it to Anchor,
Right?
but
okay.
it's on Apple. It's Anchor's owned by Spotify. It's on Audible, Amazon Music.
Can you do me a
the
favor?
major one.
Can you say Anchor like that? Anchor.
No.
You can't.
No.
Boring.
No, I refuse to indulge in your weird fantasies on that.
I mean, I said the other day I gave my 2 pence on your podcast. I think it's a really, really good podcast. I really, really do enjoy it. But for me, it goes a little bit too deep in some of the topics. You say far too many words that I don't understand, which I know is quite easy to do, really. I mean, is and is just, generally my vocabulary level. But, we did talk about this in the week. We all kind of agreed that, you do go quite deep in the stuff that you talk about. Is that something that you thought about in the week? Are you just going to carry on the way you are, or would you consider getting a few, other people in to interview, some sports scientists or some bodybuilders or weightlifters? Is that something that would interest you at all?
I'm always up for interviewing people, getting their ideas and their 2 cents on things. Regarding the words that you don't understand, I don't understand 3/4 of the stuff that I say anyways. I forget it, but it does get very intensive. One of the drawbacks is because I get so intensive and so deep, 5 deep into the supplements, that it takes a long time to do the research.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the drawbacks. I do enjoy it. I have considered some changes, one of them being just going, very high level instead of going so deep into it, unless somebody wants me to do it, then I'll go deep into it. Just doing it at a high level, just kind of getting the bullet points and then moving on. So it's one of the ideas. But yeah, I'm open to talking to people. Yeah, sure.
I mean, what I love about your podcast as well, mate, is that, I first come across you through listening to a podcast. You pinged up somewhere. I don't know where I found you from, but it was your voice. And then Lee was talking about this morning, wasn't you, Lee?
Yeah, I like to put on a bit of. I sometimes do it with Voxer. If Howard's done a 15-minute check-in, I'm like, play that, and then I'll fall asleep because it's just. And I'm not saying Howard puts me to sleep. I'm saying he's got that voice that's just like proper soothing, and fall asleep to it. It's brilliant.
Were you in the group when Mark was talking about adding Howard to the group?
I don't recall.
Okay, because that was one of the things Mark was waxing about it, his radio voice, and I was soothing and stuff like that. So that we kind of before Mark added him, that was one of the selling points that Mark came in the group with that.
I
This guy
said
with this
to
amazing voice. Yeah.
So this guy's going. Have you thought about doing like a meditation at all, Howard? Perhaps you could. That could be like Howard's blend meditation tape. You could do, or something like tape. How old am I sounding? All right.
Put it on an 8-track.
Have you thought about that,
Getting
mate?
very tired. Relax.
There
Let
you go.
yourself go. You start feeling numbness in your toes, up to your feet, your ankles.
Great.
Now,
I am.
Feel the aura and the crystals in your hand as the energy. Oh, I was starting to channel harmony there.
Sorry. When me and Nikki first got together, we was sharing a house with another couple, and he was called Matt, and he was studying hypnotherapy, and as part of his doing his exams and that, he had to do experiments on people and stuff like that, and Nikki was trying to lose some weight, so he was using his hypnotherapy to help her lose some weight, and he gave her this CD that she had to play every night before she went to sleep. And it was something a little bit weird about having your bloke in the next room to you, right? Giving you a hypnotherapy before you went to sleep every night. It was a little bit off-putting, if you ask me.
You want Howard to do that?
Yeah, I want him to do. I want you to get a tape for Christmas. Make us all a hypnotherapy tape, Howard.
You know
Can
what?
you put mine on vinyl?
The thought of being in the bedroom with a lot of ladies, that's interesting.
That response. No surprise there at all.
Have any of you got any pros or cons that you would like to talk about Howard's podcast? Come on, delve in, guys. Say what you want about him.
Yeah, I like the technical aspect of it. I like because a lot of times if you get if he's talking about a higher level and just kind of doing a bullet point and going into it, a lot of people that don't know something may do research, and he actually does the research for you. So if you're listening to it, you're getting everything that he's researched, as opposed to a quick bullet point. And I just throw out something, 4 out of 5 men and this and that, and just throw it out there. And then it's an intriguing point, and you kind of got to go do your own research. What I like about what he does is he does the research for you. And so that's what I like about it. I think because I'm one of those people that if you drop a nugget, in my brain, then I write a note and then I go look at it later. I look for it later. He kind of gives you the whole thing, or at least a lot of it anyway.
It is a very knowledgeable podcast. How long does it take you to prepare for this podcast, and Howard? Matt, how much notes do you write down?
The last one I did in depth, mentioned it many a times, the choline one. It's choline is how it's pronounced. I had like about 10, choline. I had about 10 pages of notes on it. And I think about maybe 30 something different resources, something like that I used.
Have you
Look
thought
at my
about
forehead. It's like the fucking sun's in this room, isn't it? Look at that. Fucking
Well,
ridiculous.
Lee, I was about to say, you got great downlighting. That's what bodybuilders love, because it makes you look more defined.
Yeah, get up and show us your pecs.
Let's see the abs, buddy.
Oh, don't do that. He wants Howard to hold his mouth open. He wants you to show your pet. I'm kind of afraid what he's gonna ask me to do.
I would say about is kind of what I just mentioned in terms of where the podcast is going, is working on trying to find like a direction that I want to go with it. Do I want to stick with just doing supplements? But there's other stuff I like to talk about, so I like talking to people and not necessarily talking about supplements. So it's just maybe just trying to find a direction, something I should work on. And how much time do I want to devote into it? That's another thing, is do I want to devote a lot of time into it when I maybe could be taking away from doing other things, working on more promotion for the supplements, for example, or things like that. That's just all things that I'm working on right now.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, and there's no other there's no reason why, like I say, on your podcast, you can't get hold of like the guy from Huel, and you can't get hold of all the people from local gyms, and you'd be surprised how many people would love to come on and have a chat to you about sports science and that, masseurs and sports science. There's a huge amount of people, and by talking to these people as well, Howard, you could start selling your products to them. They might be interested in your product, and it's a good avenue for you to go down, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. That networking. I mean, maybe about a year ago, I interviewed Corey Tolar. He's the owner of Pure Grade Supplements in in Austin. And I learned a lot. I had a lot of preconceived notions about supplements, and then he kind of laid it out in the episode. I was like, oh, I never think about it that way before.
Mm.
So he's a very knowledgeable guy, and he's the one that said that he loves digging into the science too on it. But he said sometimes when you talk to people and you kind of go balls deep into the stuff, they think you're bullshitting them or something like that, or you're trying to. So yeah, it's all good stuff to think about. So that's it gives me a lot of food for thought to work on, is where I want to go with this. How often do I want to do it? Do I want to shoot for every single week, or something that a schedule that I know I'm going to be able to keep up with? It's just things to think on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, how often are you podcasting at the moment? And, was it a weekly, monthly, fortnightly, or was it just when you feel like it?
When I started doing the vlogs, it was every week, and I was just uploading it to Anchor. However, and I still have probably 2 or 3 months, I would say, worth of vlogs that I haven't edited yet. It's just sitting down, editing it, and working out the time to do that. And
Right.
so that hasn't, and we talked about before, what you prioritize, you make time for it. It hasn't been a priority. I've been working on trying to get these supplements finalized, getting the insurance straight, just for example, making sure, setting up Sam's school, which is it's a nightmare on that. So there's other things that were just more important to do.
Yeah. Understood. Talking of which, Rodney, over to you. Your podcast. Tell us a little bit about your podcast and what it's about.
It is about me, some of my thoughts and things and people that I find interesting. If I typically I will find, I'm consuming content or something like that while I'm at work, and I'll find somebody interesting, and then I'll just start looking up what they do, and or somebody will give me an idea with somebody, hey, you might want to reach out to this person, or I had a couple of people reach out to me. And typically what I do when it comes to like interviewing, so if I was going to interview you, I would go down your content and just go up and down everything you're doing, see what you're doing, follow a couple of, your posts, or if you got a book, read your book, and I will prepare my notes from there. And then I would probably write out about 10 to 15 questions, and not with the intention of getting to all of them, but just with the intention to have some things, to fill that that dead air, if you get to that. But generally the conversation goes where it goes. So you don't have to get to the 10th question, really. Very rare do I get to like 10 questions that is scripted, that's written down. Most of the time, my questions are, maybe 1 through 4, we talk, and from your answers, we go where the conversation goes.
Mm.
And the other part of what I want to do is do maybe the 10-minute videos where I pick a particular topic, and it'll be pre-recorded and maybe edited, maybe add some graphics or something like that into it, like Howard does with our shorts. And then now, because we're on YouTube, everything is more geared towards YouTube and video. So that's where the transition for me was. It was always audio, pre-recorded, edited. Now I'm moving into the video aspect of it. And so pretty much everything I do now will be video. If there's audio, it'll be downloaded, but for the most part, it'll be on video, on either live streaming or pre-recorded.
And for the people at home that haven't listened to your podcast before, what's your podcast called?
Oh, it's A Brother of a Certain Age.
And like Howard there, I think one of the reasons why I picked you in the group was, again, for your voice, because you've got a really, really good audio deep voice there. So, what would you like to say about his podcast, Ellie?
I've only listened to 1 or 2 of them, but I would echo really what I said about Howard. The voice, the audio quality is really, really good. And the last podcast I listened to was with the rapper, and it really, really appealed to me because it was a real story about this guy's experiences and his existence and the things that he's achieving in his life and the goals that he has. And it was very real. It's probably the only way I can explain it. But the audio quality was really, really good. So the content and the quality was there. The only real asshole comment that I would make would be controlling the quality of guests' audio, but that's beyond our control. But yeah, as I said, I impromptu marked everybody's podcast, and I think I gave Rodney like a 7 out of 10. So I'm well impressed with it.
How important to you is audio quality then when you listen to a podcast?
Yeah, a lot of people say, "Oh, it's quality over quantity over." Wait a minute, content over quality, and I was like, "Yeah, I mean, if the podcast is that good, you could let a bit of shitty audio get through, but I think your audio's got to be 70%. You can get away with a little bit of chair knocking and foot tapping, but if you've got feedback or there's a hum or a buzz or it's just distortion, it doesn't matter how good the quality the content of the podcast is. You just can't listen to it.
And yeah, what's really funny is I interviewed a guy a few years ago, and literally 10 minutes in, he's fucking got a lawnmower. So the bloke had come to cut his grass outside, and you could hear the lawnmower getting closer and closer and closer to the house until it finished. And I thought, about 15, 20 minutes in, I thought, thank God it's finished. Then the bloke come out with a bloody leaf blower. I just so wanted to say, will you tell that twat in the background to shut up? For me, I mean, I can put up with a dodgy microphone or a not so good microphone, but those noises like chickens or dogs in the back chirping away, Rodney, does that boil your shit?
Yeah. And my first podcast that I was doing in 2019, it was right in the front dining room. So people, cars revving by and stuff like that. And I didn't, I was hoping I didn't hear it. But when I went back to edit it, it was like, it sounded like the dude drove right through the living room. And I'm trying to figure out how to, and for me, remember, everything I did from start to now, it's all learned. So I literally was recording stuff and I didn't know anything about audio quality. I didn't know anything about the noise gate. I didn't know anything about Zoom or the Rodecaster. Like, these are things, soundboards. I didn't know anything about these things. I just was like, okay, I want to talk on the mic, and so everything was like we on the fly. So and now I don't really listen back because I was editing. Now, that's the thing about the live stream. I'll give us a listen because I want to prepare for what we're doing in the future as far as that. But like when I'm just interviewing somebody and there's not going to be a follow-up, like I probably won't go back and listen to it. When I was editing, you listen to everything, right? Because people, what did they tell you? You got to listen for the ums and the coughs, and you're trying to take out all these noises and stuff. And I didn't know anything about editing out sounds and stuff until I got in this group, and you guys were like, pretty much coaching me on how to remove sounds. Same thing with microphone quality, or like I had an issue where I was recording the Zoom into the laptop. I was plugging it in as a power source. And when the laptop got hot, how laptops start to buzz a little bit. The buzz was in the recordings. And I couldn't figure out why is this. When I'm talking, and the people that I'm interviewing, they got good quality. Mine is buzzing. I couldn't figure it out, but it turns out you were like, well, maybe you don't run it through once I unplugged it from the laptop, that sound went away. So it's a lot of things, like technical things that you learn along the way if you don't know ahead of time.
Go ahead, Lee. Go ahead.
It just reminds me of a setup that I've got. So I have the loop setup like you do, Mark, right? But the problem is, if my laptop is charging, there's feedback.
Yeah.
So I've got to make sure my laptop's fully charged, unplug the fucking thing, Otherwise, I get feedback and it sounds fucking terrible.
Right.
I,
And
I, go on, Rodney.
I was gonna say, and you have this, you might have this gem, this quality interview that you feel is good, and that noise is driving you crazy.
Yeah. The thing is though, is that the people that listen to your podcast might not pick that up, but it's fucking there. And what my experience is that laptops are terrible for podcasts. They're designed to make fucking noise, and the worst ones for it are the Mac laptops. Mac laptops, I don't know what it is. I mean, the quality on them is phenomenal. They're really, really good for editing, for music and everything. But for podcasts, they're the loudest things that for picking up buzzing and interference from the battery. I don't know what it is. Have you find that, Lee?
Yeah, like I don't know if you ever noticed it, but when your laptop's plugged in and you lightly touch your fingers on it, you can feel the static. So it must be something to do with that, because you unplug it and you don't feel it. You've just literally got to just sort of touch it and you can feel it buzzing. So it must be that.
Yeah, I know when I used to do amateur radio, you'd have your amateur radios, and the buzzing noise when you're talking, when you're amplifying your voice across the world, that sort of stuff would make hell of a noise. And we used to have like the ferrite rings on all your electrical cables to get rid of that. And there used to be loads and loads of things that we do and in the end I just ended up throwing my fucking Mac laptop away because it was just making that much noise. You're trying to talk to somebody in China or something, and all you can hear is their shit laptops that they make over there making a noise across the world. It was terrible. But what would you like to say about Rodney's podcast there, Howard? Is there any pros or cons that you'd like to say about it at all?
Well, the pro is like what he was talking about, how he had like the 10 questions based on his research. One, that's a great quality, is to actually do research on your guest before they come on. But Rodney's really good at, well, it's going to sound weird, probing. What I mean by
sex people, Len, sex people.
What,
big fucking finger.
What I mean by that is what he mentioned. He had like the 4 questions, and based on the answers, he's really good at drilling down into like why a person answered the way they did. Whereas if you'd be like, oh, why did you start this? And because 10 years ago, this and this happened. Oh, okay. Well, let's move on. It's like, no, he wants to go deep into it. And I like that. Like, instead of just a surface level talk, you're really having like an in-depth conversation. That's a good thing. The only negative I can think of, an audio quality. Yeah. I mean, we're all trying to improve our audio quality, is consistency. That's just it. I mean, I'm working on the consistency, as I just stated. Rodney's working on it. Well, I think we mentioned it before, like, podcasting. What is it? Life is what happens when podcast, or whatever you want to say. Like, we're trying to podcast around our lives. And, we all have busy lives. We're all parents, and we all have, significant other people in our lives. And, we're just trying to work out the best we can, with the time we have available. So there's just consistency to be it.
Sweet. I've got nothing more to add to that at all, to be honest with you. I think that's spot on. It's spot on. I've got nothing more to say to it. It was good comments there, guys. Now, Lee, let's talk about your podcast, because I'm really, really pleased.
Podcast?
Well, I'm pleased with the decision that you come up with at the end of last week. Has it changed at all, what you said to us?
No, it hasn't. I'm not going to break my back or, twist my niblets to try and get guests. If they come, they come. It's not a priority, but it still is a passion. I love having deep conversation with people. So it's still, I'll send a few messages out a week. And if I get 1 or 2 podcasts done in a month, that's good enough for me. I'm happy.
So tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Oh, well, it's called The Conversation Junkie, and it's based around having deep and meaningful conversations that people, and asking questions that people don't normally ask. So, I get an entrepreneur, and I will ask how he made his money, how other people can make their money. Like people, I ask questions that people don't normally ask, and I really go almost to the point of discomfort in these interviews. You know, I push people a lot. I don't mess around because I think the people that I interview have value to give, and I want to extract that value and give it to other people. So it's a very no fucks given, no holds barred type of podcast. Does that make sense?
I love your podcast, mate. Like I said to you, in the past, I'm one of your biggest fans, and I was gutted when you decided that you was going to stop Conversation Junkie. And when you said the other day that it was starting up again, I was really like, when's the next episode? When's the next episode? You know, I mean, you go on about going deep on people and getting information from them, but I mean, you're really, really good at giving advice and information yourself. Like you say, you're a coach in that, and I've been watching you on TikTok the last week or so, and some of the advice that you've been given has been really, really good. Is there no way that you could record that and put it out as an episode kind of thing? Do you know what I mean? You know, I mean, the content that you put out on TikTok, I think we'll all agree here now, is tip top, darling, tip top. So is there no way that you can record that and put it out as an episode?
Yeah, there is. I have thought about that because you can download your episodes for 90 days, your live videos.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have thought about that and chop it up and do a summary of advice. And yeah, I mean, there's loads of things I can play around with doing that. Yeah.
I mean, old Cliff Ravenscraft, he doesn't do as many podcasts as what he used to do, but he's still on that. What's that platform? What's that place he used to go to years ago?
Clubhouse.
But he deals a lot on Clubhouse, and people can come in and talk to you. I mean, if you is that a thing that you could do? Go back on Clubhouse and get that going on Clubhouse and get people in talking to you and build a relationship and some content up that way.
Yeah, that I have thought about that, but I also pay attention to what people do. And Cliff is he's known as the podcast answer man, so he knows what he's doing when it comes to things like this. And he's actually messing with LinkedIn at the moment. So I was like, maybe that might be a thing to look at, going live on LinkedIn instead.
Oh, is LinkedIn doing a live thing at the moment then, are they?
You can now do audio on LinkedIn. So if Cliff does it, it's probably worth looking into.
Yeah. Anybody got anything they'd like to say about Conversation Junkies, apart from how fucking amazing the name is and I want it?
Yeah, the CJ, Conversation Junkies. Lee is good at probing. Again, he loves to probe. He probes deep.
Probe.
I think Lee is a wonderful interviewer, and I agree with him that he's good at asking unorthodox questions that you wouldn't expect the guest to be asked, and that's good. Kind of get the gauge of what they're thinking about a wider range of topics. So
I remember having somebody on a podcast once, and he's got his own protein powder. So I think his expectation was that we were going to talk about fitness, and we ended up talking about guns and gun rights.
I've heard of that guy before.
Yeah,
he's kind of an asshole, is what I heard.
So, Rodney, is there anything you'd like to say about Lee's podcast there?
Yeah, I think, to me, you can tell when somebody is knowledgeable when they're talking. So like I said, I do research and I write stuff down, and I think I know a little bit about a lot of stuff, just a little bit. Lee, what I've found in listening to Lee is that he knows a lot about a lot of things. He can talk from investing to politics, local politics, world politics, economy, not necessarily pop culture, in which you're like a fanboy talking pop culture, but from a standpoint of, being able to break down things that are going on. So I find, and I've been encouraging Lee to continue podcasting, even though he's been fighting us all, kind of like, I don't know, we'll see. But just refreshing his energy, the knowledge. And I always go back to, I scrapped a plan I had to interview a politician after listening to his interview with a politician, because I was like, oh, I'm I'm not ready. I'm not prepared. Like dude was sparring with somebody who was running. What platform was she? I mean, as far as how big of a politician was she?
Oh, she would have been the local representative for Shropshire. So
Right.
yeah,
So
I mean, it wasn't like a local councillor. I mean, this was a big deal.
right. So she was going to be like, I don't know what we call it. Would it be maybe like a state senator or something? Like, I guess
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
we call like
yeah.
a senator here, to be able to spar and talk politics with somebody on that level who that's their life. Now, politics is not your life. And then to be able to talk about aliens, you know what I'm saying? It's like it's so much knowledge there and so much information there, and you know what you're talking about, or at least you either you know what you talk about, or you're pretending you know what you talk about. You know what I'm saying? And the questions are poignant, like Howard said, you're able to probe deep into the conversation. And I think because your lane is coaching, you know, it's almost like a what is the profession when you well, it's almost like you are I'm losing the profession. It's a mental health it's a mental health profession. What is it?
Psychotherapist,
Not
psychologist.
psychotherapist. No, it'll come.
Counselor.
Counselor,
Therapist.
but it's a counselor. It's in that realm, but that's not the word I'm looking for. But you know, you come from that point. It's somebody who's interested in how the mind works. I forgot which. So you seem to be interested in how the mind works, and that's
that's true.
Including your own mind. Like you know what I'm saying. You're probing into your own mind. You're probing into people's minds. So that's what I appreciate.
Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to your new episode, Howard. Were you going to say something there, mate?
With regards of Lee's his coaching, I was going to say counseling, and I know that was a question that was asked in your live, counseling and coaching. So I want to make sure say coaching. I think it would be kind of cool if there was a way you could do a live coaching call on TikTok. Like maybe you can have it set up where you have the person maybe through StreamYard or something, and you're just record. So maybe they can keep their anonymity, you know what I mean? Keep their identity a secret, you know, just in case, and then just do a live coaching and do that on TikTok. You know, maybe you'd want to get a waiver for them to sign first or something like that. You know, I don't know, but I think that'd be a good way to display your abilities, and you get a lot of people to join live, and then you could share that as a podcast episode, you know, and then people would be like, oh, can I do it? You know, whatever.
Some good advice there, Lee. Something for you to think about on that one. And like I say, all the best with your podcast, because I'm really looking forward to your next episode. Any ideas roughly when you're looking at doing another one, or is it just, you know?
Yeah, I do want to get one out within the next month, which seems like a long time, but as I say, I'm not rushing. I'm not pushing it. I'm waiting for a particular person to get back to me, but you know, I'm not going to push it. I'll chuck out some other invites and see what comes of it.
Sweet. And last but not least, it's my little podcast, the Mark Jeffrey Podcast Show.
All right, I'm out. See you later.
I also do a podcast called Design for Life, which was something that I set up last year, which I've decided that I'm going to start doing a few things on that, because at this present moment in time of me wanting to lose weight and with the way my mind is, and I've realized that is something that I can set up to help men of the world that are struggling with not just weight, but alcohol issues, pornography issues, any addiction issues, because, you know, I just want to get men talking again, because lots of us have got lots of problems that are fueled by not conversing with other people. And that is my zone of genius. I'm able to talk to people and get shit out. And I just thought the other day, well, there's no reason why I can't make this a podcast about us men, you know, talking and helping one another and building a community. So that's what I want to do with Design for Life. And the Mark Jeffrey Show is a podcast where I just get people from all around the world with different topics, just get together and have a chat. You know, I used to do radio shows and I used to play music and love that, but I'm more of a chatty man. I'm a guy that loves to talk to people and find out what makes them tick. And I really, really do enjoy it. I haven't recorded a podcast for about 4 months, and that is something that's been going on in my personal life that, you know, I just haven't wanted to do a podcast, but now is the time. I'm back. I'm feeling really confident and I'm getting a little bit sorted. So that's what I've got to say about my podcast. I don't know if any of you want to say anything about my podcast, if you know, or whether you just want to, you know, kick me in the balls, whatever. Go you head.
I think just.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. And just like with Lee and Rodney, Mark, wonderful interviewer. And as I mentioned in the Voxer, you are a great host. What I mean by that is you're really good at directing the conversation the way you want to go, and you do it in a way that's not off-putting. You know, if you know me, I ramble. So if I'm rambling, you're really good at saying, "Oh, let's go back to this." You know, go back to the topic you were talking about, so you can get to where you want to go. So I think that's the strength of your podcast. And I would say if there's any weaknesses, it would be to me is just I get the sense that you're trying to do everything. And I would say just like what I'm working on right now is trying to figure out what direction I want to go. It seemed like at times you were trying to go in like 20 different directions. And so I don't know how valid this statement is, but I've always heard is if you try to appeal to everybody, you appeal to no one. And so that's just my 2 cents on that. But yeah, other great podcast. Listen to it. Enjoy being a guest on the show, even though those are your worst performing episodes because everybody just tunes out.
No, it wasn't actually. It wasn't. Anybody else?
Yeah, I really like, and I went through on purpose and found every episode I could find with your mate next door, Blaze. I don't know what it was. I just loved his ideas. I liked how he spoke. And you just kept. It was like you just kept serving him, right? On a tennis court, you were serving him, and he was knocking him down. I think one of my favorite things about your podcast is the audio quality, obviously, but you like to play devil's advocate sometimes, and I'm like, oh, he's playing both sides here, a bit Joe Roganish. Like, I don't know whether that's an inspiration, but you play devil's advocate, and you do tease out a little bit more than. Sometimes I get the feeling a guest isn't quite comfortable, but it's like, I don't know, you tease a little bit more out of them. I don't know whether you do it on purpose, whether you're aware of doing it, but I get the sense that's what's happening. So love it. I just, the caveat to me, I don't listen to everybody's podcast just because of the journey that I'm on, but I have listened to them and
breaking up a bit there, Lee. Yeah, thank you very much for that. I would say for me personally is that sometimes I get guests on that will be somebody that's contacted me and said, Mark, can I come on your show? Yeah, no problem. And in the past, I was one of these people that would take anybody on because it's my duty to find out a little bit about that person. And for me to get the conversation going and to promote them by, if I ask them a question about something that I have not got a clue about, then it comes across in the podcast, if you know what I mean. So a lot of the time, I haven't got a freaking clue what I'm talking about with these people. So it's for me to find out the information. And if I can understand it, being a simpleton, I'm sure other people can. So when you say about digging deep and keep on fishing, it's because I'm not one of these people that writes pages and pages of questions down and say, so how old are you? And how long have you been doing the podcast for? And asking questions and not listening. I'm asking questions that I want to personally know about. I want to know the answers, and by me understanding it, if I don't understand it, I won't move on to the next question. I'll say, well, do you want to go a little bit deeper on that? Because it's all right asking these people these questions, but, sometimes you get these people in that talking so much gobbledygook. And I know my listener, and I'll be like, hold on, can you just break that down? Because I don't understand what you're talking about. And I think that's vitally important for a podcast.
Yeah, I would also say so people don't have the privilege of seeing you behind the scenes, but how many times have we heard, Mark come in and be like, I got a podcast scheduled today. I have no idea what I'm going to talk about.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, and also too, you changed my idea of what a podcast was because I like the interview style and because I do write things down. When you started to kind of get in my head, like, well, why don't you just look at it as two blokes in a pub talking? Like, how would you do that? And that takes a little bit of the pressure off of me because now I'm like, okay, I got to get these questions right. I want to make sure this, I want to make sure that. But then it becomes robotic. You know what I'm saying? That's where I started to go, okay, you know what? I'm just chatting with some dude, you know, and I'm interested in his product or his story or his whatever, but I'm just kind of chatting with it. That's why I said I'll veer off. If I get to 3, 4 questions, I'll veer off. We can talk about whatever. But when I started to approach it like that, I always kind of did it, but when I started to approach it like that in my mind, it took a little bit of the pressure of the interview off.
Mm.
You know, 'cause I'm not an interviewer, I'm not a journalist. I didn't go to school for it. So I'm like, okay, how could I make this interesting? Is this person going to see through the fact that I don't know what the hell I'm doing? But we all kind of do, whether you went to school or not, you've all had a random conversation with somebody where it just went on for hours or 15 to 20 minutes. And essentially that's what we do when we press go live or record.
Yeah. I mean, like I say, I never went to school about being a journalist neither. But the way I look at things is I'm good at talking to people. And what annoys me about podcasters or broadcasters or whatever, right, is that it's the people that ask the same fucking questions through, you know, they'll have one guest one week, they'll have another guest the following week, and they'll, you know, that the first question will be, so where did it all start off? And then the next question will be, oh, so, you know, what got you into this? And when you've done like 213 episodes, if you ask the same questions every week, it gets boring because generally people are going to answer the same sort of questions. But do you know what I mean? So I think that it's very, very important that you go at an interview, like you said there, Rodney, going into a coffee shop or going into a pub and finding out about a person, but finding out about a person as it happens. You know, so if you know, if you was a professional boxer or something like that, you know, I wouldn't have a clue where to start that conversation. So you just basically, as if we just met for the first time, have a few questions wrote down on a piece of paper, like you say, in case the milk goes sour. But it is so important that you start digging deep and finding out about that person and making it interesting and asking questions. You know, if it starts going sour, and I know that you're into American football, I have a few questions there in the background about American football. So when you're asking the question and he's like, the person's like, yeah, no. And it's a little bit like that. Just say, I hear, Rodney, you're into American football, you know, and then ask him a little bit more of a personal question so that you get a little bit more information, an interest, something that makes him interested again about the conversation. The most important thing about being a podcaster is getting those nuggets of information. And more importantly, keeping your guest interested, because you got to remember that a lot of these podcasters, the people that you're speaking to, aren't podcasters. They're not people that are on the microphone all the time. They're going to be nervous. So you've got to try for the first 5-10 minutes of an interview, try to keep them interested. Try to keep them, you know, not. I've had people in the studio next to me shaking, absolutely petrified. So it's vitally important that you keep them feeling easy, keep them feeling like you are in a pub or a coffee shop talking to them, you know?
Yeah, and genuinely, you do it in a genuine way to yourself too. You know, you're not putting on a show. Like when you turn on the mic, this is who you are behind the scenes. You know what I'm saying? The people though, we have, you know, we all have the privilege of, you know, the way I talk. Have you guys ever heard me yelling into the Voxer when we're behind? I pretty much talk like this all the time.
All the
You know,
time. He's always shouting at us all the time, listeners, all the time, calling us wankers and stuff like that all the time. He's so ungenuine.
Well, listen, you know, I'm definitely not a gentleman. But here, just to give you an idea, or just like a little extra, most of you guys, when after an interview, you might I've spent 45 minutes to an hour in interview, and then like 2 hours after we stop recording with the person behind the scenes.
Mm.
You turn it off, and I'm like, oh man, this is, you know, I should have kept recording. I should have just kept recording. But a lot of times I find like when you say, all right, cool, all right, we done with that, they kind of relax a little bit more because now they, you know, and it's not that there's things that they won't say necessarily, but you could feel that, all right, we're not recording. I could let my hair down. We could just chat. That's what I think you do on the mic. You get people to do that. What we do after you press record, you get to, and you have that conversation. So that's what I'm looking forward to trying to implement.
Yeah, sweet. Last but not least, we all do a podcast called Five Deep. Would anybody like to comment on Five Deep? Any of you out there like to ask us a question about Five Deep? You know, which direction are we going to go with Five Deep? Because I mean, I know we was talking the other day that perhaps we'd like to change the name to Conversation Junkie. No, we'd like to change the name to something different and start doing a few more conversations and getting a few guests in and talking stuff like that. What do you in the room here now? Well, as in Rodney, Howard, Lee, what do you feel is the future for Five Deep? We've been going now. I mean, I don't know how many episodes we've done. We've been going quite well and quite consistently. What do you guys think is the future for Five Deep?
I think we'll be personal development / accountability / just get into. I think we'll be served because we all have a lot of opinions. We've had debates and conversations behind the scenes, so I think we'll be served well if we start to incorporate some of that as well, and jump out there on that ledge.
What about? Sorry, Howard. Sorry, mate. Carry on.
I think what we're kind of doing now is a good idea where we have a topic, we talk about it in our Voxer, just to try to, for lack of a better term, hone our ideas and then come on here and talk about it. But I think as each one of us develop on our own personal journey, and as we grow, then this show is going to grow as well, because then I think more of our respective audience is going to join in to see how we interact with our fellow groups. So, I like what we're doing here. I think, obviously, just like with our own podcast, it's the consistency. That's the thing of it, is like, there's no right or wrong answer in terms of what the topics we talk about, but it's just coming on here as often as we were able to, and just having a genuine conversation, or as Harmy would say, you motherfuckers need to be like more open and talk more about your feelings and stop being so shitty and cowardly, or whatever whatever term she would use while she's eating an avocado sandwich.
I've got a question just to round up the episode. I've got a question to ask each and every one of you. So, Rodney,
6 inches. Oh wait, sorry.
If you could have anybody as a guest, no, sorry, that's wrong. If you could have anybody listen to your podcast, who would you choose to listen to?
If I could have anybody listen to my podcast, I don't know. Somebody at a some kind of big network, or somebody that is a very fine critic that can listen and say, and pull me aside and say, hey, here's what you need to do. Here's what I need to see in order for you got potential, but here's what I don't know the person. I don't know who that person is, but somebody who can grab me and from a standpoint of Dave has success, and they can say, okay, here's what I think you can, here's your strong points, and here's what you need to work on, that type of person. So I don't know who that would be.
Howard, if you could have any guest on your podcast, who would you have on?
Man, I don't. First thing that comes to mind, thinking about it, would be my brother Chuck. I've asked him, and he's kind of apprehensive, but he's really a very, very smart cookie, and he knows a lot of different things. So I think it'd be kind of neat to sit and talk to him.
Sweet. And Lee, if you could only listen to one podcast, what podcast would you listen to? Is he gone to sleep?
He is deep thought right now.
Wake up, Lee. Oh, he's back.
Wonderful question.
Sorry, Lee. Right, you're awake again. Right. If you could only listen to one podcast, what podcast would you listen to? Fucking hell, man. Let's just bin him.
If
Should we just bin him?
One podcast. Can you hear me or no?
Yeah, we can, mate. Yeah,
Taking
just
the
any
piss.
time of day, I've got to get up for work in the morning. Come on.
Oh, wait a minute. Fucking hell. If I could only choose one podcast, it would have to be Forbidden Knowledge with Billy Carson, because it gets me on all my interests. Aliens, I love that shit. But he also talks about investing, personal development, and like mindset stuff. So that really covers a lot of the topics I'm interested in. So if I had to choose one, it would be definitely that one.
Right, guys. Well, I've asked you 3 questions there. Just have a little bit of think about the answer that you all gave there. You know, Rodney, if you could have anybody listen to your podcast, who would you choose? And that's basically saying, you know, why not give your podcast to that person and try and get some feedback from that person, that influencer or whatever. Say to them, do you mind listening to my podcast and tell me what you seriously think? You know, that could be something that you could think of. Howard, you know, who would you like to do a podcast with? You know, we talk about surrounding ourselves with 5 people that inspire us. That's kind of the line that I was going with that. And Lee, you know, if you could only listen to one podcast, what podcast would you listen to? You know, you've just said it yourself there. That person that you listen to, they interest you. Are they the people that you could get on your show? Is the people that you? So there's 3 questions there that you could all listen to. And go on, Howard.
I have a question for you, Mark.
No, you had.
Beat me to it, you fucker.
I was waiting to it. There's going to be about 20 questions coming on. Go on.
If you could be a building, what building would you be?
I'd be a taco stand. In fact,
I'd be a public toilet in London.
Oh, I don't think I want to know why.
Lee, did you want to ask me a question while we're getting a bit deep and personal here?
I did actually. I was going to ask you, what's the one thing you know you should be doing on your podcast that you're not doing?
Ooh, deep probing there.
Ask me the question again. Let me think about it again.
What are you not doing on your podcast that you know you should be?
Being consistent. And that's simply because I've had things going on and I haven't conquered them the right way, and I've let outside things put off the things that I enjoy doing the most in my life. And I think we all go through that stage, and it's now time for me to, you know, get back on my saddle, readdress the situation, and start doing what I enjoy doing the most, and that's talking to people. Whether it be on the Mark Jeffrey Show or Design for Life or on TikTok or on Instagram Live or on YouTube Live. You know, I'm a content creator. I'm no longer a podcaster. So there's all of those places that I can talk to. I'm not limiting myself anymore. So I would say that for me, it's just talk to people. I want to talk to 1 million people. Just get all that valuable information and just start learning and enjoying life, talking to people.
Good answer.
Awesome.
I like that.
I like that.
So guys, what are we going to be talking about on next week's episode? Have you thought about what we could, this week we've been talking about podcasts. I thought that we could change the topic next week and start going a little bit deeper on something else. Is there a conversation that you would like to talk about during the week, and then we'll finalize it on next week's podcast?
I like a topic Lee kind of brought up in Voxer about guys and, you know,
Lycra?
how we deal with things and expressing our feelings and stuff like that. I would love to have that kind of conversation.
You mean like men showing their feelings?
Yeah. What we show, why we don't, you know, just kind of, because it'll go into how we were raised and things that we were taught.
So how much are we showing, Rodney? How much do you want us to show next week? This is getting a little bit, you know.
Well, I mean,
what I'm getting at is, have I got to just wear Speedos on this podcast next week, or what?
Budgie smugglers.
Yeah.
Assless chaps.
What part of me are you going to be wanting to feel? That's what I'm getting a little bit concerned here about.
Yeah, boy.
Just the squidgy bits, then it won't be so painful.
Okay, brilliant. No, I think that's a good conversation. So readdress it, Rodney, in a non-sexual way.
What do you want? So you want to say he's devil's advocate, isn't it? Look.
Yeah, go on.
You know what I mean?
How are we going to be talking about this week on Voxer and next Monday?
Men and their feelings and their lack of showing their emotion.
Perfect.
How's that? He's
That's
sexualizing it. Don't worry about it.
Anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching this week and listening to our podcast and listening to us chewing the fat. It's been a great episode. Really, really enjoyed being part of it. You know where you can find us, Official 5 Deep. Drop us an email. Harmony's not here, so she can't do that spiel of telling us, where to find us. You know where to find us. Drop us some comments. If you did enjoy this episode, please consider liking and subscribing to the podcast. That way we come to you every week. You don't have to come looking for us. So guys, stay safe, stay classy, and catch you all soon.
Bye-bye.